Okay, let's jump straight into today's explainer and uncover the wild physical reality hiding just behind our digital world. We spend so much time glued to screens, firing off emails and streaming movies, that it's super easy to forget that every single pixel and packet of data actually has to travel through physical space. So today, we're going to look at the incredible art and science of how the internet is, quite literally, stitched together. We all kind of imagine our data living up in this formless, magical cloud. But is the cloud really wireless? Let's go ahead and shatter that illusion right out of the gate. I mean, the cloud sounds so fluffy and invisible and totally wireless, right? Well, the truth is actually profoundly different. The wireless part of your internet connection, it usually only spans the few dozen feet from your phone or laptop to your local Wi-Fi router or cell tower. And after that, your data literally hits the ground. Get this. Over 95% of all international data, and I'm talking everything from high-stakes global finance to your everyday text messages, actually travels physically. It moves through this massive, sprawling global network of fiber optic cables. These cables are crisscrossing continents underground, they're snaking across the deepest, darkest ocean floors, and they transmit your data as literal pulses of light at a fraction of the speed of light. It's just an absolute stunning feat of human engineering. So, here's our roadmap for today. We've got the physical internet, anatomy of fiber optics, 2 ways to splice, the fusion splicing process, deep sea challenges, and finally, proving the fix. Basically, we're taking a journey from the monumental scale of the global internet right down to the microscopic precision required to keep the whole thing running. Part 1. The physical internet. Fragility in the physical world. Let's start with how surprisingly fragile this massive infrastructure actually is out in the wild. Because, well, the internet exists in the real world, it's subjected to real-world chaos. Out in the ocean, submarine cables are regularly battered by underwater landslides, deep-sea fishing trawlers, and dragging ship anchors. And on land, the threats are honestly even more mundane, like gnawing rodents or just everyday natural disasters. Actually, there's this great inside joke among engineers. They call it backhoe fade. It perfectly highlights a massive vulnerability we have. A completely mundane digger on a random construction site can literally cause an entire region's internet to just black out, simply by digging in the wrong spot. And when a cable gets severed, the light stops, the data stops, and it immediately sets off this frantic race to go repair it. Moving on to part 2, anatomy of fiber optics, peeling back the layers. You see, when a break happens, engineers can't just, twist the wires back together and wrap them in electrical tape like an old extension cord. They have to bypass the incredibly rugged outside of the cable just to get to the tiny core. So let's peel back the layers to understand exactly what engineers are dealing with when they arrive at the scene of a severed cable. Okay, so first we move past the protective outer strengthening jacket, which is made of heavy Kevlar and rubber, then past the plastic buffer layer that keeps all the moisture out, and through the cladding. Now, the cladding actually acts as a glass mirror. It creates what's called total internal reflection, bouncing the light right back into the center. And that brings us to the absolute most mind-blowing part, the core. This is a microscopic 9-micron glass center where the light pulses actually travel. To put that into perspective, 9 microns is roughly 1/10 the thickness of a single human hair. Crazy, right?
Part 3. 2 ways to splice. Mechanical versus fusion. Once they finally reach that tiny core, engineers have 2 primary methods to fix the break, and honestly, they couldn't be more different. This delicate process of joining these microscopic fiber optics end-to-end is called splicing. Let's look at the 2 radically different paths an engineer can take to get your data flowing again.
Think of mechanical splicing kind of like a temporary splint or a bandage. The fibers aren't actually permanently joined. They're just perfectly aligned and held together inside a little cylinder filled with an index-matching gel. It's incredibly fast for an emergency fix, sure, but it does cause higher light loss. Now, contrast that with fusion splicing. This is a permanent weld that literally melts 2 broken pieces of glass into one seamless whole using an electric arc. It is absolutely the gold standard of the industry, giving you almost zero light loss. So let's look closer at part 4, the fusion splicing process, a strict sequence for a perfect weld. Achieving that flawless, permanent fusion splice requires an exact, rhythmic sequence. Remember, you're dealing with materials that are practically invisible to the naked eye. Because of that, surgical cleanliness and highly specialized equipment are just absolutely non-negotiable here. The pacing of this sequence has to be totally precise. Step 1, you strip away the heavy armor and plastic using specialized tools so you don't accidentally scratch the glass. Step 2, you clean it. And I mean meticulously. A single speck of dust or oil from a fingerprint will completely ruin the splice, so they wipe it down with 99% pure isopropyl alcohol. Finally, step 3, you cleave it. Now, you can't just cut glass with scissors. It would shatter. You have to lightly score it with a diamond or tungsten carbide blade and snap it, creating a perfectly flat, mirror-like 90-degree fracture. After that cut is made, human hands step back, and the machine takes over. The ends are placed into a portable Fusion Splicer. This thing uses high-resolution cameras and tiny, hyper-precise motors to perfectly align those microscopic 9-micron cores on an X and Y axis. Once it's perfectly aligned, it fires a high-voltage electric arc to actually melt them together. Surface tension ensures the molten glass forms a perfect, seamless cylinder. Finally, because the newly welded bare glass is incredibly fragile, a built-in oven bakes a protective heat shrink sleeve reinforced with a tiny steel rod right over the fresh joint. Which brings us to part 5, Deep Sea Challenges, Microscopic Precision in Extreme Environments. Doing this delicate glass surgery is pretty straightforward in a pristine, climate-controlled laboratory, but it's an entirely different beast out in the real world. The environment is always the engineer's biggest enemy, and they literally have to adapt their surgical techniques to some of the most unforgiving conditions on Earth. Just imagine the terrestrial challenges for a second. You're trying to maintain sterile, microscopic precision while huddled in a freezing, dusty tent next to a muddy highway in the pouring rain. Now compare that to the submarine challenges. Imagine having to haul a severed cable up from the oceanic abyss using grappling hooks thousands of meters deep. Once it's pulled onto a violently rocking repair ship out at sea, technicians perform this microscopic fusion inside sterile, climate-controlled rooms built right onto the deck. It's just this astonishing clash of heavy maritime industry and delicate microscopic physics. Part 6, Proving the Fix, Quality Assurance with Light. You see, once the weld is done and sealed, the repair isn't actually finished until the engineers can mathematically prove that the data will flow. You can't just blindly trust that the machine did its job. If there is even a microscopic air bubble trapped inside that welded glass, the internet traffic will crash all over again. So, to prove the fix, they rely on an incredible diagnostic tool called an OTDR, or Optical Time Domain Reflectometer. What it does is bounce a powerful pulse of light down the repaired pipe to hunt for any microscopic impurities or misalignments. If the light hits a bad splice, it scatters backward. By measuring this backscatter, engineers can calculate the exact amount of signal loss right at the weld. For a successful, high-quality fusion splice, it absolutely must show an insertion loss of less than 0.02 decibels. If it hits that tiny number, it mathematically proves that almost 100% of the light is successfully passing through the newly repaired weld. Only then is the job officially considered done. The cable is buried or lowered back into the ocean, and the internet is fully restored. We've really seen how the fragile physical reality of our digital lives is constantly under threat, and yet how it's saved every day by this brilliant intersection of heavy civil engineering and microscopic physics. So the next time you instantly load a web page, stream a video, or send a message across the globe, just ask yourself, isn't it absolutely wild that your connection relies on someone, somewhere, perfectly welding a strand of glass thinner than a human hair?